In today's news, despite acknowledging that Omicron may result in milder illness, the Thai government says more restrictions are still on the table if case numbers rise. Meanwhile, the Israeli man who left his SHA Plus hotel before his COVID test results is now facing charges. Details on these stories and many more coming right up. You're watching Thailand News Today, where we bring you the latest headlines in Thailand and beyond. And in our first story, the Public Health Ministry says that despite early studies showing Omicron may result in milder illness, the government still insists that new cases must be kept to a minimum to avoid having to enact policies that would affect Thailand's reopening. Sathit Pitu Techa from the ministry says government officials have been ordered to work from home after the New Year holiday break, and the private sector is being asked to follow suit. Schools may also face a return to online learning in a bid to control the spread of the Omicron variant. Sathit acknowledges that the spread of Omicron is practically inevitable over the New Year holiday, but is especially concerned about children below the age of 12. As they are not vaccinated, they are at increased risk of contracting the virus and spreading it, according to him. He says hospitals run by the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration have been asked to prepare for child patients, adding that private hospitals could also be asked to care for children with severe symptoms. Meanwhile, more cases have been linked to a cluster in the northeastern province of Kalasin. The outbreak was sparked by a couple who returned from Belgium on December the 10th, testing negative on arrival. They went on to meet up with friends and frequented a number of venues before subsequently testing positive with the Omicron variant. In the last 24 hours, Kalasin has reported 54 new infections. A total of 173 infections have now been traced to the couple. Of those, 66 have been confirmed as Omicron, while the results are pending on the remainder. Bullets from the ongoing clashes between the Myanmar military and the armed wing of the Karen National Union have reportedly landed on Thai soil. A fight between the military junta and the ethnic troops broke again at around 10 a.m. yesterday morning. Thai media reports that 2 Karen soldiers and several state soldiers have been killed. 3 people who were injured fled across the border to Thailand's western province of Tak. Thai rescue workers and an emergency team from Tak Mansot Hospital treated the injured refugees. Around 5,000 are staying in temporary camps in Tak's border region, and with the ongoing violence, more refugees are expected. Some have pitched tents along the river between the two countries and will cross over to Thailand if the situation worsens. According to Thai media, some refugees in the temporary camps have gotten sick due to the drop in temperature during the winter months. A Thai medical worker team is now standing by for 24 hours a day. One Thai local living by the border told Thai media that she and other residents are worried about the situation as there are more bullets and even anti-tank rockets found in Thailand's border area. The Israeli man who left his SHA Plus hotel in Bangkok before his COVID test results came back is now back in Bangkok to face charges and deportation, even after testing negative 3 times. It was the Tonglaw police who originally obtained a warrant for his arrest as he fled and hid on December the 21st, so they will hold him in custody now while prosecution takes place. He is now being charged with violating COVID control measures. The man could face a maximum fine of 40,000 baht and up to 2 years in prison for the crime. The Immigration Act also calls for him to be deported, and he could potentially be banned from re-entering Thailand. Authorities may choose to waive criminal punishment and immediately deport and possibly ban him, or they may choose to set an example and fully prosecute him, deporting him only after jail time is served. Authorities have historically been very weak on punishing violators of the pandemic restrictions and emergency decree, but they have also been known to make strong examples of cases that garner a lot of media attention to project a tough stance on crime. Ohad Baruch landed in Bangkok on December the 17th and left his SHA Plus hotel before his test results arrived, telling them he was visiting a friend in the hospital before never returning. He He attempted to hide out in Pattaya but was denied a room without submitting a passport. He then fled to Koh Samui Island. And as a national manhunt grew, the Israeli man contacted the Israeli embassy saying he wanted to surrender, and health officials and police took him into custody at Samui Pier Bang Rak restaurant the afternoon of December the 22nd. His initial PCR test came back with positive results and faint traces of Omicron, but after 6 days on the run, he tested negative in Koh Samui 3 separate times. While he was cleared of COVID, officials say he still violated Thai law, including the emergency decree in place for the pandemic and a lesser general law to punish people who enter the country and then go places they were not allowed to go. Chiang Mai health officials are ordering hotel operators to be more strict when it comes to COVID prevention measures after 2 foreign travelers in the northern province tested positive for the Omicron variant. Under the Test and Go scheme, whose registration is now closed, fully vaccinated travelers can enter Thailand after passing a PCR test upon arrival. Results from the test can take up to a day to come back, and essentially the travelers are supposed to be isolated from the general public until their results come back. However, some hotel operators have been loosely following these rules. Some hotels were late in picking up guests from the airport, and some travelers even walked around the airport and had drinks when they were technically supposed to be isolated at the hotel. One hotel even reportedly let Test and Go travelers out before passing a COVID test. Reports in Thai media say authorities will give notice to all of the 107 hotels under Chiang Mai's Test and Go program. Operators that do not follow the measures, they say, will face charges. Government officials have approved an executive decree to change Thailand's anti-doping law in an effort to have a ban on hosting international tournaments lifted. Last month, the World Anti-Doping Agency ruled that Thailand failed to fully implement the organization's anti-doping code. While Thai athletes can still participate in international tournaments, they are banned from flying the Thai flag at most events, with the exception of the Olympics and Paralympics. Deputy Prime Minister Wisanu Krungam says Thailand has previously agreed with the WADA that the issues leading to its non-compliant status would be fixed by the end of January. However, any additional delays could indirectly cost the kingdom around 50 billion baht a year in lost business opportunities. If the executive decree receives parliamentary approval, it will allow the Sports Authority of Thailand to enter into talks with the WADA in an attempt to have the ban lifted. Wisanu is optimistic, saying officials have worked closely with the anti-doping agency and believes the ban could even be lifted in time for the Asian Indoor and Martial Arts Games scheduled to take place from March to April. And with New Year's fast approaching and fears of restrictions hampering all-out party festivities, Koh Phangan officials have put out a release announcing the rules and restrictions for the infamous full moon party New Year's countdown. After an initial attempt at a full moon party in November produced no obvious surge in COVID infections, last week saw a bigger return of the party, with DJs, tables, and bucket bars set up along the beach and thousands of people wandering along the shores. The announcement said there will be screening for COVID vaccination and giving tests on the spot for those who do not have proof of a negative test. People would need to show their certificates via the Mawprom mobile app. And that wraps up the show for today. Thailand News Today will be back tomorrow. Meanwhile, you're not up to date on the Thaiger.